Hello, friends. This is the Y'all Show, and we're talking country music, courtesy of our friend right on Music Row, Preshias Harris, as Precious is a music career development consultant, and she's on with us right now. Also, check out her website, NashvilleMusicLine.com. We're going to learn a lot more about what she does and how she can help you right on Music Row, Nashville, Tennessee. But let's go to that special spot of Davidson County and track down our Music Row correspondent, Preshias Harris. Hey, Precious, how you doing?
I am doing good. Just it's been a wonderful, lovely day, and it's beautiful outside. So it's been a really good day. Lots of
Happy
news to share with you guys.
happy summer to you.
It is. It's supposed to be the longest day of the year.
Yeah, I think that was this
Wasn't that
past
the
weekend.
21st?
Yeah, it was the 20th, I think, which
20th.
was
Yeah.
Saturday, this past Saturday. So we got a lot to look forward to. And Precious, we're going to learn a lot of good country music knowledge from you, and then we're going to learn some of the inside stuff that you help people out with on Music Row. But let's dive right into some news out of Nashville. The Judds, they're going to receive a very, very good honor, a star on the world's most famous walkway, as they'll be on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What can you tell us about that, Precious?
Well, their publicist is a good friend of mine. So, and of course, them being from Kentucky, I'm super excited. But they have other artists on there. I'm pretty sure Trisha Yearwood's on there, and I'm Chris Christopherson. Of course, I'm sure Garth is. But yeah, they join very elite group of musicians on there. Not to mention, pop star Kelly Clarkson and some Zac Efron and some of the other artists that's got their Hollywood Walk of Stars. I actually got to see the actual Walk of Stars, Hollywood Star Walk of Fame, or whatever it is. I've seen it at the Hollywood Lowe's, and I look out my window and I'm like, oh, that is some beautiful concrete work. And it was the walk. I didn't realize we were like next door to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So that was pretty cool to actually see in person.
Now, do you have a star on the Walk of Fame yet, Precious?
No, but if I would have left home, like I told my mama, and I wanted to be the next, the movie star, Elvis Presley's girlfriend is what I wanted to be when I was like 9 in Hollywood. You never know. I would have. I might have would have.
One good thing, the time I was there in the Hollywood area, one of the great things, in addition to having stars along the Walk of Fame, at least at that time when I was there many years ago, they got a Hooters right there on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yes, they do. And it is delicious.
Yeah, I like Hooters anytime, but right there in Tinseltown's a nice thing. But let's brag a little bit again on Naomi and Winona, the Judds, in this great honor as they have their induction onto the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Let me remind you that the Judds, 5-time Grammy winners, 9-time, that's 9, N-I-N-E, 9-time CMA winners, 7-time ACM award winners as an iconic duo in country music. Quite a feat from mother-daughter tandem of the Judds.
Yeah, Naomi was one time when I went to visit my aunt up in Eastern Kentucky. She was my dialysis nurse, and I didn't realize because they hadn't really started anything. Winona and Ashley, the girls, were very, very young, like in their tweens.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing her like 5 or 6 years later at the Kentucky State Fair. I'm standing in line, and I look at her and I'm thinking, she looks just like, and it didn't dawn on me because you see them on, but you got the makeup on. But the day that she was my dialysis nurse, she didn't. She had some makeup on, but not a lot. And I was standing in line. It's 100 degrees, and I was on dialysis before my transplant. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to pass out." And somebody heard me, and they go, "Why?" So I was on dialysis. All she heard was dialysis, and she brings me up the front in front of the 14 people that I'm behind, and takes my picture so I can leave and go get hydrated, so nothing would happen to me. And then we get to talking, and we found out later that she was working at the dialysis center the years that I had been up there. It was really funny.
Precious, in case some of our listeners and viewers aren't up on their Kentucky ease, I have to educate everybody here for a second. She said dialysis. I thought you were saying Dallas there for a few moments there. So I'm not a Kentuckian, so I'm trying to translate here. It's not Dallas, it's dialysis for everybody else out there. Precious, you sound great. Keep it up.
It's a little bit Kentucky, just a little.
but we love you. I still laugh. You're the very first person some 25, 27 years ago that at least in the part of the South that I'm from, we don't say electric. We call it electricity. You're the very first person I ever heard it called electric, and I hear it a lot now. But you're the first person I ever heard it called that, and I laughed my fanny off when I like, who calls that electric? And now a lot of people evidently have called it electric through the years. So thank you for educating me.
Do you remember the first time I almost made you wreck the car when you were driving?
Yeah, we won't get into that. We just don't have time, Precious. But
Welcome to the Palomino State.
yeah, I know. We love our Palominos and our Palmettos. Talking with our Nashville Music Line correspondent, Preshias Harris, right here on today's Y'all Show. Precious, let's move on from a great hit maker of the 80s and 90s, the Judds, to a great hit maker of the 80s and 90s and the aughts, I think is what it's called, and also here in the last, the roaring 20s and even before then, the king of country music, George Strait. He's in the news. He actually grew a beard out the other day, and he evidently had a little surgery. What more can you tell us about George Strait?
He had a very painful surgery. It was a knee replacement. Of course, I had mine like 22 years ago, so it's probably less invasive. But he's ended up having to do his own rehab because of the obvious reason of COVID. But a lot of people just think he stands on stage and sings, but he doesn't. He's actually extremely active. He's got a huge ranch, and several thousand acres. And so you're riding the horses, you're baling hay and doing all that. I'm surprised he hadn't had a knee replacement earlier, honestly, because he is, big rodeo guy growing up and things like that. He's, served in the armed forces. So I'm surprised he's not had to have the knee already. So glad he's doing well and on the mend.
Yeah, I think his statement here recently was he's ready. He's all cured from his surgery and he's rearing to go. And I'll have to tell you, Precious, he might be active off the stage with his cows and horses and everything he has there on his Texas ranch. One thing George Strait is not going to have to worry about is carpal tunnel syndrome caused by his guitar picking. Love George, but he's not a good picker. I don't even know if he knows more than 3 notes on a guitar, but he sure looks good up there batting it like this when he's on stage, doesn't he?
Well, he knows how to pick a hit song, so that's good. If I had a choice, guitar picker or pick a hit song, I would probably want the hit song. So he does have a wonderful set of golden ears for sure.
Yeah, he sure does. He's got a voice. That's what people aren't up there to see George Strait pick and grin. They're up there to hear him sing and make people grin when they hear that beautiful voice of George Strait. All right, let's talk about Buddy Jewell, a guy that you and I both have had a chance to work with through the years. And Buddy Jewell working on some new music. Do tell.
I love Buddy. I remember, I met Buddy years ago. He was our demo singer for our publishing company in 1997. And he won Nashville Star 5 years later in 2003. He was the winner, and the third runner-up was a little gal named Miranda Lambert. But, Buddy's always been able to reinvent himself and create, because he's just a wonderful vocalist. He's got that timeless voice. Like, as soon as you hear his voice, you know it's Buddy. It's like you hear Willie, you know it's Willie, and same thing with Mr. Strait. His songs, he's been working on this for a while. I saw him about 7 or 8 months ago when he had another CD he'd been working on, and he was at a fan club party. They were just overwhelming, wanting him to have something to introduce his new music, and met Buddy Jr., and he said, I know that this project's going to be a while, but he said, I really want to do it. And he said, I've got some people, so hopefully we'll have it done. And fast forward, a year later, it's out. So I'm very happy for him. And he's got some really cool stuff. He's got his other acts reinvented. And of course, he got together with Jerry Salley to write a song. And Jerry's also president of Billy Blue Records. And he's a big songwriter. He was the one that wrote Wild Rose's first hit, Digging Up.
Breaking New Ground. Breaking New Ground. I think it's
Breaking New Ground. That has something to do with a shovel.
Yeah. How about me pulling out the late 80s country music knowledge here on today's Y'all Show?
Oh, yeah. No sleep.
Hey, we have a good time here, don't we, Precious, when we get together with our czar, our maven on Music Row, Preshias Harris. This is the Y'all Show, and we're talking all things country music. And speaking of new music, in addition to a guy like Buddy Jewell, Arkansas's own, with new music, how about Texas's and Hawaii's own Hugh Nelson, the almost 90-year-old, also with some new music, Precious?
I know. His son actually did his video, but just seeing Willie, I did luckily get to meet him one time. One of my friends was playing guitar for another guy that had opened up for Willie by the name of John Fogerty. And we were at the
I've heard of that
house,
guy.
And yes, and I got to, Willie walked by me, and you have to realize back then I was a rocker, a head rocker, and I mean like headbanger, and I just love rock music, anything the 60s and the 70s could throw at me. So when Willie walked by, and the Billy Burnett, whose uncle Johnny Burnett founded Rockabilly, he was standing there, and he introduced me to Willie, and I was like, hello, like, go on, I'm waiting for John Fogerty to get off the stage. So, but I look back now, I'm like, oh, what do you really like? Say, I love your music since I was a kid, and make conversation. I just very politely said hi and thank you, and that you're wonderful, and move on down the road. I'm waiting for John Fogerty. And I feel so bad now for being honest and telling that story, but, you know, at least I can say I met Willie. So
yeah.
I hadn't smoked weed with him, but at least I got to meet him.
Yeah, and I don't think he's smoking it these days. He might be finding other ways to get under the influence.
No, he's not. It's so funny. One of the things that, of course, Willie's got some new music out too, but one of the things on Buddy Jewell's record, he has written a song about Willie not doing it anymore.
Oh,
so you have to check that out. His Willie don't do weed anymore.
Well,
so you have to check out that track.
Well, there might be other things Willie is not or is doing these days. We won't go there, but Willie Nelson.
Yeah, and you asked me about the thing. I know I got off track, and I'm sorry, but Billy Joe Shaver is actually the one who came up with "I'm Just an Old Chunk of Coal," and anyway, but Willie's son has been really, really involved into his. He's got two sons that are gorgeous, good-looking men. And Mike is one that's doing the video and getting out there, and I think they both work with him either in some way of their band or things with Willie. But he's always toured. He used to tour with his sister, but he's always had family somehow, some way involved in his touring. It's pretty cool, I guess, to have your kids part of your tour too.
First Rose of Spring is the new album. I think it got pushed back a little bit because of the virus, and it's going to be available at willienelson.com at the end of next week, around July 3rd. You can log on and get the new album from Willie Nelson there, First Rose of Spring. Excited about that. Precious, we want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in copyright in terms of how to protect your work on Music Row. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you do there with the College of Songology and Nashville Music Line and more, let's give people a quick update on what's going on in the top 5 of country music. Hard to forget, Sam Hunt, which is, let's talk about that, Precious. I don't really like Sam Hunt. He is he is the epitome of this kind of rap bro country stuff that we hear about. But to his credit, this new song, Hard to Forget, is hard to forget because he goes way back. I think it's to the 1950s with There Stands the Glass. That's, what is that, a Leroy Van Dyke or Webb Pierce or somebody that sang that?
It sounds like Leroy Van Dyke.
Okay. Well, he's got...
But, he's still touring. Leroy is still touring.
Okay, I think I should have looked this up. The 50s were slightly ahead of my time, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in that late 50s that Leroy Van Dyke, I think he was the auctioneer or something like that.
Yes.
He had that There Stands the Glass, and that song, you can hear it in this new Sam Hunt song, which is pretty amazing, and it's actually the real voice going back to the early days of the country music pioneers, you could say, and a good amalgam of old with new with that Sam Hunt song. And then we go to Luke Bryan, and his One Margarita is at number 4 this week. Morgan Wallen checks in at 3, Chasing You. Kenny Chesney, Here and Now. Scotty Mccreery, how about that? Raleigh, North Carolina's own, at number 1, In Between. Way to go, Scotty, the lovable Scotty Mccreery. And it went from 8 to number 1. What a jump there on the chart for Scotty. Beam me up,
Before I
Scotty.
forget, I do think it was Webb Pierce. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Webb's Cadillac is in the Country Music Hall of Fame. And I remember seeing the song in that archives. So I'm pretty sure it may be Webb Pierce instead of Leroy Van Dyke, even though he's cut over, 85 records Leroy has. I'm sure he's probably did on one of those records, but the one known for it is Webb Pierce.
Yeah.
And you remember his daughter used to work at the Longhorn with us. I mean, she was one of our waitresses there many years ago, in the late 80s, early 90s. His daughter was, and she never told anybody who she was. She was just very down to earth, very sweet. I'll never forget her.
Yeah,
and
it
I
was
told her I was
Webb.
going to the Country Music Hall of Fame. She said, "Oh, my daddy's car's in there," and I went, "What?"
Yeah.
And that's how I knew.
It is Webb Pierce, thanks to Mr. Google for helping us out. And I was wrong. I was partially wrong on the artist. I thought it could be Webb Pierce, but Webb Pierce, known for that guitar-shaped swimming pool there on Music Row. This song, Precious, was out in 1953. This predates Elvis Presley. There stands the glass. And again, elements of this are
My
heard.
husband was born, but I wasn't.
This Webb Pierce, There Stands the Glass, which is part of Sam Hunt's new song, it is a really neat way to again bring in old and new, and I'll give Sam Hunt credit, the former UAB Blazer quarterback. Way to go with that. Now, Precious, Scotty Mccreery at number 1. I think it was last week when we had you on, we were talking about who was atop the chart at that time, and at that time it was the duet Lee Brice had there, and of course that song was a big hit here. It did go to number 1, but some gossip here in the last couple of days, Precious, and I want to get your take on that. As Lee Brice in this duet song, his partner there, we got to talk about, unfortunately, a divorce here, as it was Michael Ray, he and his wife, they have announced, Precious, they are splitting up. Carly Pierce, your fellow Kentuckian. What do we know about this?
Well, I do know, first of all, it makes me really sad. Because the second time I actually met Michael through a friend of mine, introduced him to our group and gave him to actually one of the first producers meetings he had on his second time back to Nashville at the age of 20 was one I had set up with Michael Knox, which is, Jason Aldean's super famed producer from his, I think, 16, 17 number 1 records he produced for him. It was very sad to see it because I've known Michael since he was 20 years old. And I got to see Carly on the early end of her career. And she reminds me of just a little butterfly that, and I remember seeing them together at the country radio seminar, like I think it's 2018, I think is when they met. They were both, people say they met there. They did go on a date in Nashville Palace, but they actually met backstage at country radio seminar, which is, CRS in, I think, 2018. They were both on the New Faces show. I'm hoping that there's a chance they'll be reconciled, but I don't know. I guess because I've watching Michael grow up the last 10 years, it just sort of made me really, really sad.
Yeah, Carly Pierce and Michael Ray had only been married about a year, and only
8 months.
Was it 8 months? And it was
Yeah,
only about.
They got married 5 days after my wedding anniversary on October the 6th. My wedding anniversary is October 1st.
And I noticed it was a little unusual, Precious. I don't know if you tuned in to the Circle Network here about 2 weeks ago, but Michael Ray, Lee Brice, Steve Warner, and Carly Pierce were all on the Opry together. And during that taping there, or live session there on the Grand Ole Opry, Carly Pierce was on one end of the stage, and Michael Ray was on the other end of the stage. I thought that was a little unusual at the time, and now
Well,
we find out.
Why.
Okay, go ahead.
That was intentional on the production crew, because when you're trying to mix the sound on an auditorium that has no bodies in it, no bodies.
Okay.
Remember, it was taped in front of a no audience,
Sure.
not a live audience. So to get the acoustics right, they had to position Lee closest to Carly.
Oh.
So when they did do their duet, that it wouldn't sound like she was singing on this side of the stage and he was singing on the other stage.
Okay.
For logistics sound reason, they were seated that way. I know Steve Warner was like, this is a little weird because y'all are married, but it was for a logistics standpoint that they did that.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up. And they sang that number one song, Hope You're Happy Now, Lee Brice and Carly Pierce. We wish Carly and Michael Ray the best as they decide their futures. But unfortunate news here to pass along on this week's Y'all Show. Now, Precious, let's talk a little copyright if you don't mind. If you don't know what Preshias Harris does right there on Music Row, she does a whole lot. One of the things she does is a music consulting business, and she brings on new talent each and every day, maybe, or at least that she's in the office and not shut down by the state of Tennessee because of the coronavirus. And she's here to help you out. Don't be bashful. Look up Precious, and she can maybe bring you on if things work out. But one of the main things that Precious is able to help people out with is learning about copyrights and stuff. So when you come to Nashville with the dream of making it big, you don't want to do the wrong thing, and Precious is able to help you out. So Precious, for those of us who aren't so familiar with copyright in terms of the music business, what exactly are we talking about?
Copyright is to prove your ownership. And the way I explain it to new parents, and I mean that new parents as in new parents, but new parents to the music industry, that the first thing you did when you got when your child was born, your singer-songwriter, to prove that that was you and your husband's creation was get a birth certificate. Well, the same thing is true of a copyright. It's like a birth certificate, proof of legal proof that you are able to collect the royalties from that song as a creator. And if there's two copyright claimants, which there usually are, if there's two writers, then that's two legal rights to collect royalties on that song. I had a really, really good question in my office yesterday, Tuesday. And they said someone had come to me talking about his bass player, unfortunately, and told him he doesn't need to get a copyright because he had emailed it to himself and it had a timestamp on it. Well, that's fine and dandy, but wonder if someone sees you singing that song, and he knew that it was written about March 2020, and he's like, I'm gonna bypass that. I want that song for my own, and they got bad intentions, and they'll backdate a copyright with the Copyright Office till January 2020. So if my client, soon to be client, and I was trying to explain to him that he needed to copyright that song, whether or not he had it emailed to himself or not, that a poor man's copyright email, the new version of it, will not stand up in court if someone else holds the legal document to proof of ownership in creator, which is copyright.gov, Library of Congress, and you do it with a PR form, PA form for performance arts, or a SR form for sound recordings. Those are the only way that you could legally protect your songs. Now, you have all kind of websites that here copyright all your songs for $300 and things like that. No. Only use .gov website, because that is issuing that it's done by the federal government, which controls the .gov. And so you know that you're getting a tried and true legal document that you own that copyright that will be able to use it on a global platform. If there's ever any question, it will work in all the countries.
Precious, when people have their songs, it's their baby, and people want to protect their baby, and a copyright is a way to do that, right?
Exactly. The copyright is the safest way to do it. And if you sign with a publishing company, they will take over and sometimes issue an assignment of copyright. So they have the legal right to collect your royalties if they're paying you a $30,000, $40,000 a year draw on the song that you're writing for the company, for their publishing company. So it's really good to make sure. I always have my clients to go ahead and start their publishing company themselves, which they can. Some people have come to me and said, I was told I can't do my publishing company. I have to join one. I went, not exactly. There's a lot of independent publishers that are self-published authors, just like they're self-published songwriters. And ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, or other one, Global Rights, can all help you set up your own publishing company. I always advise for my kids to do that, my music kids, for a couple of reasons. If you're going for a publishing deal and the publisher says, well, let's do a co-publishing deal for about 3 of your songs instead of your entire 100 songs. So let's just say after 2 years, the publisher, it didn't work so well, but I'm going to revert back the rest of your songs back to you, to your publishing company. And you have a publishing company to give those back to, because it's John Smith's publishing company, and publishing company was the Zoom Music Publishing. So they actually have a legal document to release the publishing back to a bona fide publishing company, which was yours. The one thing you don't want to do is, I've heard people say, oh, I'm going to wait. I don't need to do my publishing company because somebody's going to sign me to a publishing deal. Well, in the meantime, if you're doing a lot of songwriting, somebody's going to have to get that if they're going to register your songs for mechanicals or sync or anything like that, license it to use it, on digital platform. So the one thing you do want to do is make sure that your publishing company is there. So after 2 years, if they want to revert it back, if you don't have your publishing company set up, there's nothing to revert it back to, so they get to keep your publishing forever. That's not a good business move. You want to retain as much as you can as you do your journey in this music industry.
Precious, you've been giving us a lot of helpful information, but I'll be honest with you. I've been sitting here taking notes. This sounds complicated. Is there a way to get help? I know we can reach out to you, Precious at NashvilleMusicLine.com, but is there any other tools or way to get help on this thing?
Yes, you can actually, you can always welcome to email me. I answer all my emails, and you can also Google me, find me on the web. And it tells you a little bit about what I do. And usually I take a meeting, just an overview of what I do, and just to see things about. I've got some pretty cool people, from award-winning songwriters to the NSAI executive director. NSAI is not allowed to endorse as a public group, endorse anyone, but the executive director believes in what I do and the passion I have for my clients and the kids that come to town that don't know a lot, that has a chance to be taken advantage of. And he knows that I just don't let that happen. If you're anywhere near my office, it ain't happening. And so he actually gave me a wonderful a cheering review for me and what I do. And then I've got former vice president of ASCAP. So, these are people that I've known for 25, 30 years in the business that, that knows my heart through and through. But the biggest thing is, I don't want to happen what happened to my mom. And I remember my mother getting taken advantage of when I was about 11 years old, and I was eating potato soup for a year. I cleaned out my parents' savings. I was very, very learned about bad people on Music Row, but it didn't deter me. It just made me more determined to make sure it didn't happen to anybody else. And another client that I met, and he's not really my client, but I've interviewed him. Anybody I interview, I consider a client for my music stories and my articles and stuff. Mm-hmm. I ran into Wade Hayes about 3 or 4 months ago. We were at a venue thing with John Rich, and I went up to him and he asked me what I was doing, catching up, because I met him in '90 when he was playing guitar for Johnny Lee, and we get to talking, and I told him what I was doing. I said, "Wasn't it your grandparents that lost like $40,000 your life savings when your dad came to Nashville?" And he looked at me, goes, "You remember that interview?" I said, "Oh yes, I remember the story." And I said, "I actually dedicated, when I had my book signing, one of these books for you and what had happened to you." And he's like, he said, "I can't believe you remember that." I said, "Well, because it had happened to my parent too, one of my parents." So anyway, but it's just a good way for you to move around. And there are always going to be snakes in any business you do. There's going to be people that are not nice and do things off the grid. Remember, all that glitters is not gold.
A Dan Seals song there. I like that.
Yes, it is. I love him too.
Yeah.
And but they're welcome to reach out to me, and I will email them and do what I can and help them and any questions. And if I can't, I've got lots of numbers in my Rolodex to pass it on to my friends at Nashville Songwriters, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, willing to help anybody that comes to town. There's a lot of good people and a lot of good corporations there to help, that is based on helping songwriters, publishers, music business people, musicians get to the next level without costing them their dreams and their savings.
And to reach Preshias Harris, it's very easy. It's Preshias at NashvilleMusicLine.com. That's Preshis, Preshias at NashvilleMusicLine.com. And when Preshias is back on with us next week, as we get ready for the 4th of July, we're going to tell you, if you do all the right things in your copyright efforts, how that's going to pay off for you. You can make a lot of dough, perhaps, and we'll discuss that. We'll have fun heading into the holiday next week. And we're going to have fun right now with you, Preshias. We've got a Q&A. I Know Country Q&A for this week. Who could find out who your friends are with a number one hit on this date in 2007? Who could find out who your friends are? It was number one on this date back in 2007. We'll give you the answer in just a moment. Number one songs for this week through the years. Farron Young, the old sheriff, he was at number one with Hello Walls, his signature song. It was on this week in 1961, right at the beginning of the John F. Kennedy administration. And in 1971, funny man Jerry Reed was atop the chart on this week with When You're Hot, You're Hot. Precious, I think that's a song about you. Also, in 1981...
Love Jerry Reed.
Yeah, okay. 1981, the year, Dolly Parton was atop the chart with But You Know I Love You. Great song there from the Tennessee songstress. Garth Brooks and his very famous song, The Thunder Rolls. CMT wouldn't play it, but the country music radio station sure played The Thunder Rolls, and it was number one in 1991 this week. And then lastly, Lone Star, the old Texas Sea, I'm Already There, number one in 2001, almost 20 years ago. Richie and all the guys with Lone Star atop the chart. Celebrating birthdays this week, Kathy Mattea is turning 61 years young. Little Texas's Porter Howell with a birthday this week as well. Chris Christopherson, how about the great singer and actor? He had a birthday as he turned 84 years young on the 22nd.
Can't believe he's 84.
Yeah, 84 years young, Chris Christopherson. And am I right on this? No, there's two highwaymen left, Chris and Willie. We lost Johnny Cash, we lost Waylon Jennings, but we still have Chris. And also, June Carter Cash was born June 23rd in the year 1929. She passed away back in 2003. Alison Krauss, she's turning 49 this week. The Illinois bluegrass turned just great songstress with a birthday here this week. Gretchen Wilson, 1973, the year the Redneck Woman was born. And then on June 27th, how about Lori Morgan with a birthday this week as she turns 61 years young. Birthdays to all.
I do have a special thing to tell you, though. It's really ironic. Today, this week, I'm going to be working with a special project. I can't announce it yet.
Oh, come on.
I'm sworn to secrecy.
It
has to do with Lone Star.
Oh, okay.
It has to do with people that are involved in some of the biggest country acts in the last 30 years. They're all going to be together at one place doing a little project, and I've been invited to come take pictures and do some interviews. So as soon as I can get permission to go, I can be a tattletale, then I will let you know. It's going to be an amazing session, though.
All right.
From what I understand.
Lone Star is still out there trying to do their best these days, so we're excited about whatever you're going to share with us. Now, to answer that trivia question, who could find out who your friends are with a number one hit on this date back in 2007? Precious, we need to know the answer to that, friend.
It was one of my good friends who I've talked to twice this week.
Oh, really?
Lawrence. And we'll talk later about that. I was trying to help him run down some funds. It's easy when if you got one number in your phone, it's 2 degrees of separation to make sure this happens. But he also had Kenny Chesney and Tim McGraw on that recording too. And they jumped in. When Tracy first started, and Tim was, how sometimes your record label, you may have your deal, but you may not be doing anything for a year and a half, not even a few shows. Same thing with Kenny when he left Capricorn before he went to B&A. Tracy would always make sure that if he had a gig that he could get them in on as an opening act, they were there helping him. So when he needed help doing Find Out Who Your Friends Are, and this song came to him, it was like a perfect fit. Because remember, in the early 90s, it was Daryl Singletary and Tracy and Kenny and later on Daryl Worley and all going to the Silverado. It's closed down now, but that was our two-step in place. And, it was just a really cool time back then because everybody was on the edge of stardom. So it was a wonderful, wonderful time back then. And I would love to relive it. Clint Black had got in town, had his hit, Better Man, and Garth had his hit come out called Here in the Real World. So it was just all the stars were lined up in the early 90s because a lot of those people that came in early 90s, it was like the changing of the guard. It actually set the pace for the 90s country and the cowboy hat and the traditionalism to come back. And because, there was some things happening in the late 70s when you got John Denver, who was one, CMA male vocalist, and there was a huge outcry because he was pop and not country, even though his music's more folk and country than a lot of the pop stars were. But it was just a wonderful changing of the tide, and I'm glad that we were a part of it.
Yeah, we were. In fact, you and I, Precious, back in the day, we went over to the Nashville Palace a few times. I actually have the photos to prove it. But we missed, at least I missed out on a guy working there at one point in the 80s, Randy Travis. And we got to give RT a lot of credit. He's got a #1, Precious, but it's not a record. His book that came out not long ago, Forever and Ever Amen, is #1 on the book charts. Congratulations, Randy Travis.
Mr. Animal Lover, wonderful Randy Travis. I met him in 1984. I actually saw him before.
Are you sure it wasn't
1982?
Yeah. You sure it wasn't that year?
I remember going to the Nashville Palace, and they said, "Come on out here. We're going to let our cook sing a song." And he was Randy Trawick, of course. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget it. He got on stage, and I looked at my friend. I said, "He shouldn't be in the kitchen. He should be on the Grand Ole Opry." And everybody was like, yeah, on the table we're sitting was like, oh my God, he's so good. We can't believe it. So I knew that he was going to become a star. It took me a bit to recognize him because he did take off his apron when he got on stage, and he didn't change much. But as soon as he saw, I thought, oh my God, that's the cook with a voice. That's Randy Travis, So,
Precious, as we wrap
I'm glad
up.
Randy survived. He, there for a while, it was very, very scary that he wasn't going to make it through that stroke, and I think it was in 2013.
Yeah.
But thank God he did, and he's got a wonderful woman that sits by his side, and they adopt little critters together from the shelter. And so, best of luck to Randy. Congratulations on your #1.
#1 book, which might even be his most important #1 he's ever had. What a great honor for Marshville, North Carolina's own hometown hero. Precious, as we wrap up with you, we've got 2 CMA-related news items. Please share with us what's going on that front with the Country Music Association.
Now, you're talking about the one with Luke Bryan's on
Luke
July
Bryan,
6th,
as well as CMA, they've got a big event in July that I think is going to be a TV special.
Yeah, they have 2.
Okay. Tell me.
They got one with Lindsay L., and then they've got one, I have to remember because I've got so much on my brain. They've got Broken Bow artist Jimmy and Lindsay doing it, and I think it's Eastern Standard Time. I think it's on July the 1st.
Okay.
At 7, I think. And then they've got another one. Luke's doing like the best, but I think Luke's is on the YouTube channel for CMA. But he's going to be doing the top best 15, the top 30 performances of the last 16 years of the CMA Fest type thing.
All
so.
right. And Luke Bryan's is Thursday, July 9th, 8 Eastern, 7 Central.
Thursday, July the 9th, and then Lindsay L. and Jimmy Allen's is the 1st.
And right. Luke's will be on ABC, so he's going to be on the national.
Yeah, Luke's is on ABC, and then I think once it airs that they're allowed to put it on their YouTube channel. But I think, they have to do all the people, the ad people and the what they call when you air a show and you see Pepsi in the Super Bowl, Pepsi paid for that spot.
Yeah.
So I think once they air it on ABC, I've been told that they're probably going to put it on the CMA YouTube channel.
And as we wrap up,
hopefully you'll be able to see it.
And as we wrap up the month of June, remember we should have already had CMA Music Fest in Nashville a few weeks in the rearview mirror, of which they record a big concert or 2 while they're there, and then that shows up on ABC usually around mid-August. And so at least ABC being a little proactive, putting a little country music out here, courtesy of the CMA Fest of yesteryear and more CMA stuff. So excited about that. Preshias Harris, it's always exciting to have you with your Nashville Music Line report. Go to NashvilleMusicLine.com. Don't forget to email Preshias at Nashville Music Line to learn how perhaps Preshias can help you or someone you know chase that neon rainbow. Preshias, thank you very much. We look forward to chatting with you again next week.
You too. And everyone have a blessed 4th of July.
Well, we're going to talk to you before the 4th. So next week when we reconvene with you next week, I want you in your red, white, and blue, okay? You think you can pull that off? I think you can. All right. Well, that will wrap up.
Well, even sparkly shoes. Wait and see.
Yeah, you can look like Uncle Sam. We'll or Colonel Sanders. Either one, we'll take it. All right. Thank y'all very much for being on with us. We'll see y'all later.